There are myriads of life forms living upon this planet that we call the Earth. There's the animals, of which we are but a part. And of those animals, there are the mammals, the marsupials, the reptiles. In themselves, the animals make up many different sections. There are the fishes in the seas and in the rivers. There are the birds of the air and the birds that prefer the water and the cliff tops. There are the insects. There are also bacteria, the germs. All these things are of great importance to the planet. But of all these myriads of life forms, none of them could even exist if it wasn't for plant life, because plant life was the first form of life to develop on the planet. And it was their need that created all the animals. So we are here at the bequest of the plants. Quite a sobering thought, because God is green, for without plants, no life on earth could ever exist.
So there you are. We are only here at the bequest of plants, and you might think to yourself, well, this is a bit daft. It was a bit daunting actually, that think if it wasn't for the plants we actually wouldn't be here in the planet. And I'll explain to you how that happened. It was that millions of years ago, as the earth was cooling, there was loads of carbon dioxide in the air, so plants developed and they inhaled that carbon dioxide. The thing is, as they were inhaling the carbon dioxide, they were exhaling oxygen. Now, this carried on for a few million years, but eventually the atmosphere was getting laden with oxygen, and the plants needed the carbon dioxide. So nature had to develop something that would reverse the situation, that would breathe in the oxygen that the plants were exhaling and exhale carbon dioxide to keep the plants alive. Otherwise the plants would have suffocated in oxygen. Do you understand that? Quite simple. So animals started, and that led to us. So we are here just to keep the plant life going, actually. So you might think to yourself, alright, so there's the plant life. There's a tree, there's grass. So you'd think, looking at that and looking at me, there's a world of difference between me and you, human beings, to a plant. But in actual fact, that's not true, because if I take a leaf off this, you see the leaf of an acer there, right? The material in that is exactly the same as the material in me, right down to the very last cell. And we're not that different, plants and us, whatever you might think. So we take this leaf into the laboratory now and put it under a microscope, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, follow me. So here we are, we've got the leaf. I've put it under the microscope, and you'll see what results from this.
As you can see under the microscope here, you can see the veins of the leaf, which carries the sap as our veins carry our blood, and you can see the individual cells as well. And if you look at human skin, you can see veins, which are the blue parts in there, and the individual cells are just exactly the same. And then we look at an orchid leaf, which is structured much the same again. And then the next bit is an acer leaf, which again you can see the veins which carry the sap and the individual cells. So basically, if you look at the cells of animal life and of plant life, as we see here, compared together, there's really not much difference, and that's not all.
Right, well, we've seen that structurally we're not much different to plants. One of these leaves is what we used in the laboratory there, and the same as the leaves here and the petals, all made out of much the same thing. But what about reproduction? Is there much difference between reproduction between us and the plants? You can see here the bees are going to all these little flowers here, and we don't rely on bees to reproduce. I'm sure you know how we reproduce, but let's have a look at the differences and the similarity between even that.
When you look at the reproductive parts of a flower, you will see that the pollen is usually transported either by bee or by wind or by some other means, passing animals, to the female part of the plant, and it goes into the ovaries and develops a seed. Well, if you look into the human reproductive system, you'll see that the sperm swims towards the ovary and breaks through the wall of the ovary and fertilizes the egg cell to form the start of life, almost exactly the same way.
Right, so we've discussed now the fertilisation of plants and humans and animals, all much the same. But what about the development from there on? Once the seed's been fertilised, or the ovary, egg cell, whatever you want to call it, what happens, like as in plants, for example, you see they start shooting like this and growing out of the ground. So it's not that much difference really. The development inside the seed until it reaches this stage isn't much difference, and then we go on to the growth. So
if we look at a baby inside the womb, a chick inside its shell, even tadpoles inside their little jellies, and you know how they come out. They're very similar to plants actually, as this bit of film will show you. A seed actually comprises of a tiny plant folded up inside the testa, or the outer coat of the seed, in the same way that a baby is curled up in the womb and the chick is inside the eggshell, and tadpoles inside the bits of jelly, if you like, as well. The radicle or roots of the plant go down towards gravity, and that's what's known as geotropism. The stem, on the other hand, or the plumule, goes upwards towards the light, and that is called phototropism.
Hello, my angel.
Hello, Lola.
I was just talking about the similarity between animals and humans and plants, right? And what differences there are. Can you think of any difference between, say, a plant and me, for example?
Well,
What's that?
you make impressions of people.
Impressions?
Yeah.
You mean imitation? Like?
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, imitations. You imitate people, and plants can't do that.
That's a very good idea. Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, it may surprise you, and it may surprise you out there, that plants can actually imitate. They imitate insects.
Yeah.
They imitate all sorts of things, even stones. But we'll have a look at that, shall we?
Okay.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Let's go up to the Pegston Hills,
All right.
and I'll find a bee orchid out there,
Yeah.
and I'll show you what I mean.
All right then. Yeah.
All
Sounds
right?
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Cheers. Yeah.
Let's go.
All right. Let's go. Cool.
Well, so Nikki and I have travelled up to the Pegston Hills here in Bedfordshire, not far from where we used to live. where we live. And when I was working at Offaly, as garden steward at Offaly Place, I used to come up here regularly. And here in this place, there's actually lots of rare orchids. They're quite tiny, and a lot of people have probably missed them. But Nikki's been taking some lovely micro photographs of them. But we're here mainly to look for a plant called the bee orchid. And of course, in this little video, I've been telling you about different things and how the difference between us and plants. There's really not that much difference. And the bee orchid has got a unique way of reproducing itself. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute.
Here we are, guys. There's some very close up, some macro super zoom on the camera so you can see it better. These flowers. And they're called?
They're orchids, but I'm not sure which ones because I can't down that far.
Oh, bless.
I'll have to look at the video footage to identify it.
There you go, guys. Yeah, I have to admit it is right flat back on the floor, on the grass. So hopefully you get a good picture of these. Hopefully, they're lovely. I have to say, up at Pegston Hills, we thought we'd have a walk up here, and there's some lovely flowers and plants up here. So there you go. Hopefully you can enjoy these at their very best. And there you go. And we're trying to see if we can get some others soon.
The orchid, only one flower out at the moment, Ophrys aquifera, and as you can see, it's perfect shape of a bee. It resembles a bee, and what happens, it resembles a female bee actually. When a male drone comes along, he then gets a chance to mate with it, and while he's copulating, he's actually pollinating it. But how does the plant know that what a bee looks like to be able to copy it? And here's another group here, and more flowers on this one. And there is a bee coming along here, but I think he's no, not my type. It's the wrong species of bee. So hopefully we'll get a genuine one, the proper species.
Hello.
So that was fun going up to the Pegston Hills, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
What do you think of the bee orchid imitating a bee?
Yeah, wonderful.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about the other plant that imitates the stone?
That's right, I told you about that, didn't I? Well, they actually imitate a stone because they live in the desert.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
A
Okay.
desert, yeah, right.
Okay.
And the birds would come and peck at them because they're succulent, get all the sap out of them, wouldn't they?
Okay.
So they pretend to be stones and hide themselves amongst the stones so that the birds don't. Oh well, there's nothing there. Isn't that amazing? How do they do that? How do they know what a stone looks like after that?
Good point.
There's only one. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to go to the Namib Desert in southern Africa.
Wow.
You ready for that?
All right then.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
go.
Woo!
So here we are in the Namib Desert in southern Africa, and this desert is a very stony desert. There's stones everywhere. So of course, if plants are growing in there, they're very vulnerable to birds and other predators pecking them because it's dry. They peck all the sap out of them for the moisture. So what do the plants do? What they do is imitate, and they imitate stones. Believe it or not, but how do those plants know that they're what a stone looks like? I'll show you. Right down here by my feet, there's some what they call living stones. Have a look at this bit of film here now. So here you see on the desert floor, you see all these stones, and if you come down here, you'll find one emerging there that is actually a plant. It's a plant, I tell you there. That is a plant. Living stones, or lithops, if you want to call them that. And there's another. There you are, here. You see that? And they go on like this, and if you carry on here, there's a stone there, and right next to it is a lithops, which is actually a plant. So there you go. It's quite amazing how the plants actually grow and they look like stones in the African desert, South African desert. Namib Desert, but it makes you think, well, how exactly does a plant know what a stone looks like so that it can imitate it? Interesting, eh? And as you can see, the different species of these lithops or living stones actually change colour according to the stones that are surrounding them. Look at that, isn't that amazing? Here you go, the blue stones around there, so the lithops has a bluish colouring. The brownish ones got brown colouring. Incredible. So there must be some form of intelligence amongst plants to make it look so good. Hello, Bo.
Hello, you alright?
Yay!
Yay!
So that was a good trip, wasn't it? To the desert to see the living stones.
Far out.
So there, you know, living stones.
Yeah.
You know, plants can imitate stones.
Yeah.
They imitate animals or insects anyway, but like the bee orchid. So there you go.
Yeah.
What do you reckon to
Very
that?
educational. Yeah, but there's something though.
What?
That's different.
Yeah, go
well,
on.
you don't animals prey on other animals. Yeah.
Yeah, they do for food.
Yeah, but plants don't.
Ah, but they do.
Oh.
Right? But we'll have to go on another trip,
Okay.
another adventure,
Yay,
alright?
another trip.
So, how about going to California?
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but the peat bogs of California. Are you willing?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
let's go!
Woo!
Oh, hi. Yeah, well, now we've travelled to California, to the southern California where the peat bogs are, and there's a plant there that doesn't get much in the way of food because it lives in the peat bogs. It's very boggy, very lush green and so on, not a lot of nutrients in the soil. So what does it do? It preys not preys like that. I mean, it catches its prey like a tiger or a lion does. And in actual fact, it's the quite famous Venus flytrap. And in the bogs around here now, they're sitting there, growing away in the moss, catching flies. See if we can get one that's catching a fly. Have a look at this that we filmed earlier. Okay? Okay, so here in the peat bogs is Venus flytrap, which is Dionaea muscipula. Muscipula meaning muscle, because it's similar to a human muscle, closing the trap up. And what do we see? We see a fly here. Now, is he going to go into the trap? Ta-da! Well, we've got a waiting game here. Is he going to? Is he not going to? Yep, he's done it. There you are, it's closed. And did it get caught or did it get away? Well, it's the same thing, isn't it, with leopards and things. Sometimes they catch their prey, sometimes they don't. Yes, we found another Venus flytrap here in the peat bog near some rotten wood.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of wood lice in here now. Bit of food for it.
So that's attracted a lot of wood lice, as Nikki said. And they're having a good old feast of this.
Wow.
Whoops, and there goes another one. Yes, they're having quite a veritable feast here. Wood lice, they don't, you know, they're not fussy any insects, and even small frogs sometimes they catch. It's not
Hey.
Oh,
Wakey wakey. Going to sleep.
Yeah, well, all this travelling around the world on our magic car here to look at plants.
Tiring.
It's tiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very tiring. So I've been sort of nodding off. So.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't get that with plants, do you? They don't fall asleep, do they?
Actually, they do.
Okay, correction, they do.
They do, yeah.
Whoops,
well,
I was wrong.
You see, there's all these daisies in the lawn,
Yeah.
and the bindweed there, and
Yeah.
so on. They all actually go to sleep at night and then wake up in the morning.
Ah, well, there you
And
go.
they even tuck themselves up. Like we
Oh,
do.
their little beds.
So, yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah?
I'll show you all about it.
Okay, all right then.
I'll show you.
Yeah, okay.
The bindweed falls asleep at night and he wakes up again in the morning. So after a good night's sleep, the daisies awake refreshed and open up their flowers for the insects. And then when the sun comes out...
There we are.
So there you go, Boo.
That's it, yeah.
A little short walk there and we
Yeah.
see it in our own garden. We
I
didn't have
know.
to travel anywhere to do that.
I know.
So there you go.
I know, it's clever stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, for instance, we just moved, didn't we, from over there to back here.
And we've been to California and the
Yeah.
Namib Desert and that, yeah.
But I bet plants can't move.
Ah, but they can.
No, okay.
They travel
Correction.
miles. Some plants actually travel miles.
Oh, really?
Right? The only trouble
Okay.
is, I said I was getting tired, but if you want to see that,
Yeah.
right, we'll have to go right out to Israel, to the desert, desert out there,
Okay.
right, to have a look
Yeah.
at a plant that actually goes around the desert,
Yeah.
travels around.
Oh, okay.
All right, willing for that?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
Right, so here we are in the Judean desert, and very hot, as it always is in the desert. But in this place, there's a plant that actually travels around like you and I do. Maybe not, hasn't got legs, but it travels around nonetheless. And it's here on the floor of the desert, and here you are, and it's called the resurrection plant, or the rose of Jericho. And you might think to yourself, well, it's just a ball of straw. Well, that's what it looks like, and it's very dry. Look at that, you see. But what happens is this blows around the desert in the same way that the tumbleweed does in the old westerns, you know, you've seen on television, rolls around, right? And when it does that while in the dry season, when it rains, it suddenly stops, the rain soaks it, it roots, and it opens out into a beautiful fern, and it sheds its spores, which are kinds of seeds, and leaves the next generation there. When the sun comes out again, dries up the rain, it moves on. So it actually runs around this. So have a look at this. Have a look at this bit of film. Okay. So there we go. The resurrection plant, or rose of Jericho, rolls around the Judean desert any way the wind takes it, and sometimes it travels miles and miles, and miles and miles and miles, as who would say. And then eventually it starts to rain, and once it starts getting wet, it'll anchor itself into the soil of the desert and open out into a beautiful fern, as you will see. So here we are. There's the Rose of Jericho rooted into the desert floor. It's had plenty of rain on it, and rapidly, it has to do this within 24 hours, roots into the ground, and it opens up, and then it will shed its spores into the sand, into the ground of the desert, and those seeds or spores will stay dormant until the next rainy season, when they will start to germinate and start to grow. But in the meantime, this will have rolled up again and gone on its way to find pastures new. So it's a travelling plant. There you go. Isn't that amazing?
There we go. There's a butterfly. Land. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Hey there.
Yeah, so So now you know our little trip to the Judean desert
Yeah.
proves that plants can travel around. I mean, the same as the tumbleweed in the wild west of Mexico, that does the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So plants can travel around.
True, you're right there, yeah. Very educational, yeah. The thing is, well, they don't fly, do they? Like we have, like aeroplane, they don't fly.
Or a bird even, yeah.
Or even a bird.
Or butterfly.
Or a
One
butterfly.
just went past then. That was good timing. But no, actually, in a way, plants can fly.
Oh.
Well, what happens is that their seeds fly. And so, so plants can actually set seed.
Yeah.
They get caught on the wind and
Yeah.
they get blown like that tumbleweed that
Yeah.
travels through the desert. The plants fly up, and they've even been known to go from one continent to another and start the species on another continent.
Right.
I'll show you a little bit about it.
Clever
all right?
stuff, yeah.
For a start,
Yeah.
there's dandelion seeds.
Ah, clever
Yeah, the
stuff.
dandelion clock.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at this bit of film.
Okay, alright.
Lovely.
Lovely.
So here we are then, Boo, a dandelion head, or dandelion clock as they call, yeah?
Oh,
And
cool. Brilliant.
and we'll just hold it there in the field here where we are, and let the wind blow it, and you'll see how the seeds get blown by the wind, and they can go for miles actually.
Yay.
There you go. Look, you see.
Yeah, brilliant.
And when you come to think of it, mankind thinks he invents everything. Dandelion had invented the parachute long before we did. And sycamore seeds, just the same as a helicopter, which came centuries, millions of years after the Acer developed. So there you go. And even there's plants that even actually have crossed continents and become new species from one thing.
Yeah.
I'll show you
Right,
that
so
in a
there you go. Now
Okay.
you know that plants can actually travel
Yeah.
by air,
Yeah.
if only by seed. But of course, once they get there, they set seed and grow into another plant, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling you about how there was one plant that actually crossed a continent,
Wow.
right? And we'll have a look at it in a minute.
Okay,
But
sounds cool.
The seed blew
Right.
right across, and when the Hawaiian Islands were forming,
Wow.
they landed there,
Yeah.
and they went from a very humble plant
Yeah.
to a rather large tree.
Ooh,
Right,
wow.
and
Clever stuff.
I'll show you the plant that it is.
Alright,
Right,
yeah.
might surprise you actually.
You probably will, Okay.
Okay, let's
go.
then.
Yeah,
Come on then.
cool, let's
Off
go.
we go.
Yeah.
Angel.
Right, wow.
This is the plant
Yeah.
that whose
Really?
seed blew
Yeah.
right across the ocean, the
Really?
Pacific, and landed on the Hawaiian Islands as they were cooling off.
But I don't want to be rude, but that's
Yeah.
a stinging nettle.
It's a stinging nettle. Look,
Yeah.
look. Ow!
Yeah.
It stings,
So,
okay.
yeah.
But
Is
actually, what happened was that blew across there, and because these only sting because it stops animals eating them. You see, if they eat them,
clever.
you sting their mouth.
Clever,
You know, they're not
clever.
going to leave it
Yeah,
alone.
yeah.
Now, when it got
Okay.
to Hawaii,
Right, yeah.
it found there were no predators there. The
Yeah,
Polynesians hadn't arrived, and they hadn't
Yeah.
brought any animals with them.
Right.
So there was only plants.
Clever
right?
stuff. Yeah.
A little haven for them.
Yeah.
So they lost the sting in the nettle.
Okay,
leaf,
yeah.
Right. And they grew into tree-like proportions.
I see.
To about 30 feet.
Wow.
Right.
That's clever stuff.
So that is
Wow.
amazing.
That
so
is
the nettle,
amazing.
and in Hawaii,
Wow. Hawaii.
Hawaii, right, there's the mamaki tree,
Yeah.
which is the nettle tree, and it is
Right.
the very tree
Yeah.
that over time evolved
Yeah.
from the stinging nettle
Yeah.
into the nettle tree.
Okay.
So would you like to see it?
Yeah. Brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid we'll have to go to Hawaii for
oh,
that.
okay.
What do you reckon to that?
Woohoo.
Bit better than the Californian peat bogs, isn't it? The Lim Desert.
Slightly-
Okay, off
slightly
we go
different.
then.
Yeah, off we go.
Lovely.
Hey, whoa.
Cheers. Aloha from Hawaii. And yes, we're on the Hawaiian Islands, and if I wait for my beautiful wife to join me here on the beach.
Aloha.
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 Aloha. Lovely here, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come join us.
Come and join us, yeah. Of course, we know the history of, I don't know if you know the history of the Hawaiian Islands, But 4.5 million years ago,
Long time ago.
there was a volcano set off in the middle of the Pacific, boom, like that, big tidal waves and all sorts of things happening.
Tsunamis.
And yeah, tsunamis, that's right. And all the lava built up to make these islands, the Hawaiian Islands, Fiji and Honolulu and all the other islands. In the middle of the Pacific, of course. And of course it took a while for the lava to cool down, but lava is very rich, humusy soil, you see. So, of course, from the other Polynesian islands that are out there and other land masses, blew in the seeds of grasses. This is what we were talking about, how the seeds fly. And they landed on the Hawaiian Islands and started adapting to life there. Right, and one of these, and possibly by a freak wind, I don't know, was a common stinging nettle. Ouch! Like ouch! Common stinging nettle, and the seed blew all over the Pacific and landed on the Hawaiian Islands. But of course, you've got to remember that all that time ago, no animals or humans had set foot on the islands, so it was pristine. Pristine, not pristine, right? And so the plants really had the time of their lives. And these little stinging nettles, which we showed you earlier, right, lost their sting, because why would they want to sting anything if nothing tried to eat it?
Yeah, that's
the sting is only there to stop animals from feasting on it.
Calm and positive.
Yeah, so it was all calm, you know, the Polynesians hadn't come from the other islands, hadn't brought any animals. And so those stinging nettles became non-stinging nettles, and they grew to huge proportions and became trees. Yeah, which shows you that seeds could blow for miles and miles and miles and miles, and they never stop.
No,
so what I'm going to do now, we're going to go and have a look. Would you like to see these stinging nettle trees? Yes. And we'll show you what they are. Right, let's go off into the jungle. Off into the jungle.
Yeah, off we go.
Aloha.
Yeah, aloha.
Right, if we're going into the jungle, I think we'd better change, don't you?
Yeah, good idea, love, Okay.
Alright,
cool.
That's a good job we changed before we went looking at the nettle tree.
In the jungle. We're in Jurassic Park.
We certainly are. Oh, that's beautiful. Right, here we are, my angel. This is the plantation, the forest where the mawaki grows, the Hawaiian nettle tree. Right, this is native. It's native to the Hawaiian Islands, right? And I told you about it. It's the little nettle that we had at home.
Okay.
And these trees have grown from that, but they've lost their sting.
Cool.
And that's amazing. And look,
amazing.
They sort of grow up to about 30 feet.
Yeah. It's amazing.
But they use them, the leaves,
to
make a tea. I mean, we can make nettle tea, can't we? And little soup.
That's
they do
true.
That, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
You know, in England, and this. But you'll see the leaf is shaped the same as the stinging nettle. Yeah. But as you see from here, they don't have the sting. No ouch factor there.
Okay.
And it contains a powerful antioxidant apparently.
Wow.
And it helps to promote the heart, the cardiac system. Which is good.
That is very good for you, yeah.
That's old to take it.
Yeah, it takes some time, why don't you?
There you go,
yeah, brilliant.
And now, to get back through the beach, we need to go through this beautiful curtain of flowers. Oh, Boo, what do you reckon to our trip to Hawaii?
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was, wasn't it? Enjoyable as well as being educational.
Very, yeah.
So, what do you reckon to the nettle becoming a tree, eh?
Well, it's is there any other plants like that? I mean, does it work any other way in nature?
Well, yes, and plants. I mean, obviously, a plant doesn't want to be eaten, does it?
No, that's what I mean.
Now, I'll come on to that later.
Okay.
But no, a plant doesn't want to be eaten, so it uses. Well, you don't want to be eaten.
No, of course
nothing.
Not, no.
Animals don't want to be eaten.
No,
right?
that's true.
But plants. So remember this, vegetarians. And plants don't want to be eaten either, as well as animals, right? but we do. However, we'll forget that bit. But there is a plant that is very sensitive, and
really?
It's both sensitive, tries to stop animals eating it.
Right, yeah.
And it's even sensitive to wind, touch,
wow,
and all sorts of things.
Oh really? What's that called?
And I've got one. I've got one in the house. If you want to see it,
I'd love to see it. Yeah,
it's called the sensitive plant.
Okay.
Okay, right, let's go.
All right. Okay.
Right.
Your top.
Oh, well, I better put one on then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting a bit chilly now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
babe.
This
Right,
plant
lovely.
here is a sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, it's called.
Oh, okay.
And they call it a sensitive plant because that's exactly what it is. You know, I mean, it don't burst into tears or anything, you can turn it off and all that. But the thing is, if you touch it like that, you see, you notice the leaves will all curl up and close up. You see, the reason for this is because if an animal comes along and it sees this plant and tries to eat it, obviously plants protect themselves. The animal will go up and try and grab it like that with its, and then it thinks, oh, it must be dead, so it'll leave it alone. It won't eat it.
Oh, amazing!
That's one reason. Another reason is because through these leaves, the plant will lose moisture. So it's transpiring. They take the water up through here, turn it into energy with the sunlight. That's why they keep the leaves flat to the sun, and they keep going to the sun. And but then all the moisture, like we sweat, come out of little pores.
Oh, I see.
In there. So if it blows very windy, for example, it would be losing a lot of moisture because while it's transpiring, the moisture's coming out, it would have too much.
Okay.
So when the wind blows, instead of drying it up, they'll close up. Look at that.
Yes, I see that.
So here's a gale blower here. And that way, they close themselves up so that the moisture doesn't escape. And that's pretty clever, I think.
It is.
I mean, you know, when people think that plants are not sensitive to anything, to touch, to feelings, to they do actually protect themselves, and this is just one of them, and I aim to show you more in the future. So that's the sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, also known as touch me not.
Great.
Because touch me not, look, I'm going to close it up. Okay, thank you.
Hello.
Here you are, Boo.
Hello, my angel.
Well, now you know that plants are very sensitive.
Yeah, I know.
They don't laugh or cry. They're sensitive nonetheless, and
that's right.
obviously they don't have a good drink, mate. and
I've never a dull moment with you, eh?
So obviously plants, like animals, plants don't want to be eaten, and they'll do anything to protect themselves.
I know. There's rather a controversy there.
Yeah,
you know, with the vegetarians, there's a lot of controversy.
Well, this is the point, you know. I mean, we eat plants and vegetarians eat plants, right?
Yeah.
And they say because you can't eat animals because they're living things. Plants are living things. I've just shown you that.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
And you know, particularly a lot of people are saying, how can you eat a baby lamb or a calf, a veal?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then they have a Chinese which has got bean shoots in it, which are baby plants. They're only a few days old.
Yeah,
and they eat them, you see. But those, I mean, there is a study that shows that plants do feel pain and fear.
I'm aware of it, yeah.
If they didn't, and they've got, like animals, they've got a survival instinct.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah,
like I say, it's sort of controversial, isn't it? But also, it's also good to point out, you know, the facts of everything.
It is good to point out the facts, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
But the thing is that, you know, plants don't...
So I was going to say, but sorry to butt in,
Yeah.
What do you do then? Eat nothing? Do you starve? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly,
you know,
exactly.
Well, he goes down that pathway of people that eat meat and people that don't, and then if you turn to a vegetarian and then you know you have your everyone's got their own diet, if you see what I mean, and your dietary needs. So everyone's different. Some people are diabetic, some aren't. It goes on and on and on.
Well, you've got to remember that plants were here, as I said right at the beginning of this. hundreds of millions of years before there was one animal, any kind of animal life on the planet, on the surface anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And so they didn't have to protect themselves from predators. Like that nettle, it had to produce stings so that a plant couldn't eat it. The sensitive plant folds up and pretends it's dead. So that an animal will think, well, I can't eat it. Right? That's no good at eating. Right? But because of that, because they've got millions, hundreds of millions of years ahead of us. Evolution, right, that's right. They have developed a way of using animal life. I mean, one of it is producing nectar for bees and butterflies and insects.
That's right.
So they get pollinated. Right? And in fact, plants are the only living things that produce something to eat, like nectar for a start. It's a drink, but it's a food for hummingbirds and insects, right?
That's it.
And they produce food for us too, which doesn't harm them. In fact, it helps their survival.
There you go.
Yeah, and do you know what that is?
No.
Fruit.
Fruit. Be a fruitarian.
A fruitarian, well...
David Bowie was a fruitarian.
David Bowie was a fruitarian, yes, you're right. But the thing is that, of course, that contains the seeds. And I'll explain about all that now. Okay? Right.
Brilliant.
Put that, and we'll go out into the garden.
Okay.
Well, we were telling you about the sensitive plant and how it folds up to stop animals eating it. But of course there are also plants that encourage animals to eat their products, like fruit for example, the pears here, because the animal will eat that. That's enticing it. An animal will take it and eat it. Whoops! And there it fell on the floor, right? And lovely. Now we will eat it and throw the core away. Well, of course, a wild human would have done that, even monkeys, but throw the core and the seeds will then grow. Other animals will eat the whole thing and take the pits down as well. And then, of course, it comes out in their poo and it's got its own fertilisers to grow in. So plants do actually encourage, instead they thought, well, we can't beat them, so we join them. If they're going to eat something, don't eat our leaves, they'll eat the fruits instead. And that way they get distributed all over the place because animals roam. So clever, eh? So they're not stupid things, plants.
Well, of course, plants produce fruit of all sorts to distribute their seed, and to ensure that they get fertilised, they give the insects a little treat in the form of nectar, which we say is a drink, which is actually food for a lot of insects. They live on nothing else, as do hummingbirds, in fact. And here's a butterfly and a bee sharing the same source of nectar. Whilst many people will balk at the idea of eating lamb because it comes from a young animal, or veal because it comes from a young calf, they will quite happily eat baby plants like this alfalfa and bean shoots, mung beans, which they use in Chinese food. But the thing is that baby plants and baby animals are much the same. They've both got feelings, they both want to protect themselves, they've both got a right to live. So if you're not going to eat animals, then you shouldn't eat plants either, and just eat fruit and drink nectar if you want. But that's not practical, you see. Of course it isn't. So we are made to eat a variety of things. Okay, Boo, so these plants are horsetails. Equisetum is the generic name, and they lived 350 million years ago on the planet, and one of the first plants that colonised, really. But they grew to giant proportions about 270 million years ago, when the dinosaurs were around, just to compete with them, of course, you know, that because they kept getting eaten. Like the leaves got tougher and they grew taller and taller, and some people think that that's where the fir trees come from. But horsetails, yeah, that's the ones. And right here growing with it is our old friend the nettle, which grew into a tree, obviously, in Hawaii. Now let's go much further back into time. I want you, Boo, to go back to the Jurassic period. That's beautiful. This is it's lovely, lovely walk. Oh wow, this is something, isn't it? Hey? And there's some more, look, Dickensias. These are the true, the true tree ferns. And again, they're pretty old and ancient. There's a cycad here. Let's see the difference. The cycad is like a huge fern, whereas the Dickensias are actually trees that are formed from ferns. Let's say one of the earliest is a very tall one up there. Way back to the dinosaurs. Oh wow, beautiful. And now we move back into present times with the Fuchsia ricotonii and other modern plants that we know today, because obviously it wasn't until the animals came onto the scene and the insects that they started bringing about flowering plants. Before then, everything was dispersed by the wind and the water and everything. So here's a series of plants that rely on insects to pollinate them, including one of my favourites here, which is the cyclamen coum, which is a part of the primula family. Yep, so there you go. Right. So you're probably thinking to yourselves, well, that's all very well, you know, all these novelty plants. They're not novelty plants, it happens all the time, but I've shown you sensitive plants, all sorts, and you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, but they don't sense things like we do. They haven't got emotions and such like, and that's not actually true, because this guy here on the screen here now, this is Clive Baxter, Backster, and he was in America, and he was a private investigator and used to using the polygraph here. And one day he was didn't have much work in, and he noticed his plant in the corner there was lacking water. It looks as though it's getting a bit, you know, so he thought, I'll give it a drink. So, and he thought to himself, suddenly he thought to himself, I wonder if it's happy if I give it a drink, right? So he fixed it up to his little polygraph, his lie detector, and he poured the water into the thing, and it showed pleasure on the polygraph, right? The plant showed pleasure at being watered. Okay, now that does sound incredible, but he tested and tested and tested. And then he thought to himself, what I'll do, I'll try and think of something to the opposite, so not to get pleasure, right? And we go on to the chart, that the polygraph thing, and as he was contemplating what to do, it sort of, the chart went down a little bit, and then it went back up again, and he's thinking about what he could do. And then at this point, he only thought to himself, he didn't say it, he thought to himself, supposing I burn the leaf with a match, and suddenly it shot up to show alarm. The polygraph showed the alarm, which meant that the plant was in a state of panic at being hurt. So, you know, so if you think that plants haven't got any emotions and have no feelings, they do, right? The same as animals and the same as we do. So there you go. So it's something to think about. And also they've found that trees communicate with each other. If one tree has a pest on it, it's eating the leaves and so on, it produces for itself a substance to make the leaf bitter to stop the insects eating it. But at the same time, it sends out a scent in the wind to neighbouring trees to warn them that the pests are around. Now that's pretty incredible, really, isn't it? It's something we can't even do. You know, telecommunication, we have to use things like the computer, the telephone or whatever, and they can contact other trees miles away. And I think I also told you about the bee and the wasp that in the Mediterranean, the wasp orchid. The wasp orchid lets out the scent that the female wasp emits, right? And the male wasp can pick that up 5 miles away, right? And plants communicate with each other, same as we do. So next time you're contemplating plants, don't think of them as just things that grow out in the ground for the benefit of humans. They can't be there for the benefit of humans because they were there millions, billions of years before we even existed. So think about it. Remember, they're our friends, and without plants we wouldn't exist, because God is green, because no life could exist without plants.